As a cold wind blows away the last remnants of fall, so too does the Pick Six podcast come to your ears today to talk about two Nebraska men's sports teams that feel like they're kind of in the winter of their season. Welcome in Omaha World-Herald podcast with Jimmy Watkins, Sam McKewon. I'm Evan Bland. We're going to get into some honestly kind of depressing sort of topics today. So brace yourself for that. Everyone who follows Nebraska sports knows what's been going on with the football team. We're coming in less than 24 hours after Creighton comes into Lincoln and beats Nebraska. A lot of frustration going on, so we're going to get to some football stuff. But we're going to start with basketball off the top here. What did you guys think? Sam, you watched the game at home. Jimmy, you were in the arena. I watched the game at home. I guess just initial impressions, first of all, of what was a pretty disappointing night for Huskers.
I mean, Evan and I were just talking about this in the hallway. We have a freshman point guard on one end who has never been in this sort of situation, and Ryan Nembhard had 5 turnovers, but he was the best player on the court. We have a grad transfer point guard on the other end who has seen more of this stuff, and is still getting adjusted to a new primary ball handling role, but had to be benched for the last 12 minutes of the first half. I mean, you couldn't, if you just brought someone in there who didn't know these rosters very well, you couldn't tell who was the freshman, who was the graduate transfer. That was the biggest takeaway from me, was that Nebraska just has to figure out this point guard situation. They have to figure out how to fulfill Fred Hoiberg's vision on offense. Fred talked about having a one-on-one film session with Alonzo Verge on Sunday after the Sam Houston State game because, frankly, Alonzo Verge hadn't been executing the way that Fred wanted him to in the first 2 games. And he said it on Monday that Alonzo was very receptive to it. He seemed happy with the way it went. Fred did. And he just came out and did the same exact thing that he's been doing against Creighton from the jump. I mean, they ran a nice play for Lat Man. Zoe threw a nice pass across the court for a corner 3 on the first possession. Pretty much right after that, just went right back to one-on-one. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to take these mid-range jumpers. I'm going to take this one-footer that I expressly asked Fred specifically about that shot during the preseason because it's unique. And Fred's like, yeah, we don't like those shots. It's just like, I don't know what the disconnect is. And I tried to ask Fred about this, and Fred, he's not going to throw his guys under the bus or anything. He was very measured and said, well, Alonzo just needs to, he's used to the scoring role. He's got a scoring mentality, and he just needs to spray the ball out, and he needs to understand. Well, it's like, if he doesn't understand it after, I don't know, we have a one-on-one film session with someone, I'm assuming that's not a short one. If he's not going to understand it after that, when's he going to understand it? So that was the biggest takeaway for me from the Nebraska side. Creighton is a well-oiled machine that I think is just going to continue to keep the ball rolling. But Nebraska is probably the opposite of that.
It feels like the chemistry in that team right now, how would you describe it? Trey McGowan's is now hurt. He just had surgery. He's out for an indeterminate amount of time. What was the chemistry like when Trey was healthy, the on-court chemistry, and just your general sense of it? And what might it be now that he's hurt?
Chemistry is a tricky word. On-court chemistry, not great at all. We just established that. They're not moving the ball. They're not sharing the ball. They don't look like a basketball team. They look like 5 basketball players out there. Mm-hmm. They still seem to enjoy each other. They still seem to be picking each other up. It's very early, so this could the longer this goes on, the less this will be the case. But they're not. I don't see any signs of fracture or anything like that. But I do know that the longer that Alonzo Verge, to a lesser degree, Bryce McGowan's, the kid's 18, you can't expect as much of him in terms of running a team, but he's the same way where every time that dude touches the ball, he's looking at the basket first, and that is to a degree what he's been put on this team to do. At the same time, especially now with Trey gone, they just have so few guys who are capable of being a primary creator. More of that role is going to have to fall on him. When he drives, he's going to have to look to be spraying the ball out a little bit more too. I'll tell you what, the chemistry looked a heck of a lot better when Kobe Webster was out there running things. That bench squad looked like the happiest crew we've seen all year. Yeah, he did.
He ran the offense the way he was asked to run it, and he scored.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect with Verge, I feel like, in the sense of, do you realize that if you run it the way that Fred wants you to run it, your scoring total will be what you want it to be? I think that's the hard part, is that like the numbers come through the execution of the system. They don't come through. And I watched enough Arizona State basketball to see that, like, obviously it was kind of like a 5 guys on a court, and everybody was kind of doing what they're doing. But it's surprising to me that he can't. It's kind of like that scene from Days of Thunder when, like, Cole Trickle drives the car the way he wants to, and then he does it the way that the Robert Duvall character does, and he goes faster. Verge does not. It's so much of sports is about trust, and I don't see the trust. I'll add on to what Jimmy said, because I think that the big question coming into that game is, was obviously the point guard disparity. Let's be clear. Ryan Nembhard is way, way ahead of almost any freshman point guard that I've seen in a long time. Okay?
Yeah, he was good.
Now, hear what I'm saying. He's a better point guard than Jalen Suggs. He's not a better NBA basketball player than Jalen Suggs, but he's a better point guard on a collegiate basketball team 3 games into his career than Suggs was last year. And Suggs did a lot of scoring, but he wasn't a creator the way that Nembhard already is. Nembhard is a quarterback on the court. Again, hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's the same NBA prospect. He's not as good as De'Aaron Fox was in college or in the NBA. But
he'll probably be there multiple years, where those guys were
I
not.
would suspect that he's probably going to be a 2 or 3 year player, and he may not do a lot in the NBA, and a lot of that's because he's 6 foot 165. But we don't cover the NBA, and it's very important that people who follow these teams understand that this isn't the NBA. It doesn't really matter what happens in the NBA, only as much as it helps you recruit. Like, the point is winning college basketball games, and Nembhard's going to help them win a lot of games. Nebraska has an issue, and one of the issues is I'll go to the other side of the floor, the post play. I don't think Derek Walker looks like the player that he was when at the end of last year. I don't know why, but he doesn't look like the same player. When he goes up, the ball gets stripped. That probably shouldn't happen as often as it is. His screens aren't great. He's better when he has the ball in his hands and he's looking to distribute as a passer, but he hasn't looked as good of a basketball player as he was at the end of last year, and I don't know why. He doesn't appear to have gotten better. Trey McGowan's, before he got hurt, didn't appear to have gotten a lot better. That doesn't mean he wasn't doing really good things, because Trey does a lot of things, as Fred said, that the intangibles are clear. But he seemed like much the same player. Kobe, we just saw him for the first time this season. He appears to be better. It's notable, Jimmy, if you go back and look at the Kobe Heat Checks games last year, they lost them. They lost to Georgia Tech. They lost to Northwestern. There's some liability there on defense, clearly. But I was actually concerned with the post play. I thought the post play wasn't very good. I thought it was, they turned Ryan Kolkbrenner into Hunter Dickinson. He dominated the game. There's a moment late or midway through the second half. There's an air ball, and there's 3 Nebraska guys around him. None of them go at him. Kobe tries. Bryce McGowan's just standing there watching the whole play. Didn't do anything. And then he just sort of nicks, he sort of hits Kolkbrenner on the wrist, and they call that foul. And, of course, he finishes with an and one.
By the way, on the other end, what led to that possession, Alonzo Verge, pull-up, step-back, brick, rebound, C.J. Wilcher, step-back, mid-ranger, brick.
Right. Right. They don't have a guy who is just a lunch pail player. Kind of thought Shamil Stevenson had that role at times last year. The problem with Shamil is that he couldn't stop drawing charges, and he had to go because he did that all the time. But they don't have a Ryan Hawkins, like the guy that Creighton had. They don't have, and they've had these guys in the past. For people that have watched Nebraska basketball for many years, David Rivers was this guy, under Doc and late and early Tim. Just guys that, Michael Jacobson to some degree. Ed Morrow was you didn't want to mess with him down there.
No.
He left. He shouldn't have left, but he left. But he was a guy that he was 6'7", 6'8", and he kind of kicked your butt. Nebraska doesn't have that player. And they certainly could have recruited the player. I mean, there's guys like that out there who aren't necessarily great scorers, but they are that. And I just don't, I use this word a lot with football too, I just don't see the edge. I don't see an edginess to them. Lat's got a little bit of that, but he's hurt. He's banged up. And some of the other guys just don't have that edge. They don't have that.
Breidenbach has it to some degree.
Maybe.
He's doesn't have the bulk to really put it to the best use. But he brings that sort of energy. He's always hedging super high on screens. He's always getting his hands mixed up with the ball. Eduardo has brought some of that energy, and Eduardo Andre's brought some of that energy since he's been brought off the bench.
That's fair. He does bring that.
He does, a little bit.
There's an awkwardness to the way Andre plays where he's kind of all elbows and
right.
He's all over the place.
But to your point, none of the guys who are playing regularly are bringing that.
Right. I'm talking to Stephon Bradford, or, you remember him from many years ago. Not a tall guy. Maybe not like the 6'11 guy, but 6'6", which is what Shamil was last year. A 6'6 guy that just kind of, that's what they do. They go out there and they rebound and they throw their butt into people. And
what do all of the Nebraska players who are between 6'5" and 6'8" all have in common? They were all 4-star, 5-star guys.
And they're scorers.
Guess what those guys are never asked to do coming up? Any of that.
Right.
That's not their jurisdiction.
That's a great line, Jimmy.
Their jurisdiction is, CJ Wilcher, you're scoring 30 points a night in high school. Bryce McGowan, this is your ball. Do whatever you want with it. We'll fill in the gaps. Keon Edwards, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. That's not their job. And I was just looking it up. Your point about Trey, the lack of improvement with Trey, the guy shot a career high of 36.7% from three last year. He hasn't taken a three.
Yeah.
Between 2+ games. It's not like he shot a ton of, but there was one I remember, I think against Western Illinois specifically, he definitely could have put up and he stopped. And so
I think it's really unfortunate for Trey that he got the injury.
Yeah.
He is a kind of a heart and soul guy for that team.
Best defensive player.
So hear what I'm saying when I say this. I think if they hadn't had a drastic change and Trey had stayed healthy, something was going to go really wrong with the team chemistry, or they were going to have to put somebody on the bench. With him gone, with him out for a while, again, I think if he had stayed healthy, Verge was probably going, because you can't. It wasn't working. Now with McGowan's out, I'm saying I'd rather have McGowan's than Verge, but the fact that McGowan's is out, it feels like perhaps Verge and Webster can maybe create some kind of chemistry, or Verge and Wilcher, like something positive can come from that, because because McGowan's and Verge are similar players. And one guy is the leader of the team, and the other guy's taking 35 shots and making 4.
So, what's the thing that you can fix now that they're into the season, right? It's not probably going to be the rebounding. It's not going to be finding a different point guard. Is it a matter of Verge making better decisions and guys hitting shots? Is that what they're sort of hanging their hats on at this point?
That's what it is. The guys made shots last night. That was that was something that I was watching closely for, and I anticipated was going to happen. They were shooting terribly. They shot, I don't know, something close to 20% from three in their first 2 games, and they came alive last night. Not really thanks to the flow of the offense, which is, I'm sure, another frustrating piece for Fred's. Look what we can do. We have the shooters that actually can do. We've seen it now. We just need to get them flowing regularly. We need that stuff to happen naturally. But to Sam's point about the McGowan's thing, I don't know if it creates on-court chemistry in the way that they're going to work better together as a team. At the very least, it's something to galvanize. It's something for them to come together
around.
Them to grow up
exactly.
Yes.
Because a lot of those guys out there are just kind of looking to Trey to do all the hustle stuff, and now he's not going to be able to do it. Somebody's going to have to do some of the things that he was doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're gonna lose one of the next 3 games. Let's not kid ourselves.
For sure.
This is not a. Idaho State, Southern, Tennessee. They're going to lose one of those games. They lost to Southern 2 or 3 years ago. There's nothing left.
They lost to Western Illinois last week.
They have to play really hard. And I just don't know that I see a team playing really hard. I see them playing kind of hard, but there's a difference between kind of hard and really hard. And they're at this going forward, the level of effort and anger, because if you have a great post, that sort of dilutes some of that. You can just throw it into Hunter Dickinson. He's going to score his 22, and the rest of us can stand out here and be, Hollywood superstars and shoot threes. They don't have Hunter Dickinson. They don't have a badass who's 6'6" and only cares about getting 8 rebounds a night.
Mm-hmm.
So collectively, they have to get really angry. Like, there's got to be an edge to these guys. And we'll see.
Yeah.
Do you think they have that?
We'll see about the edge. The rebounding thing was going to be a problem with or without Trey. It's a much bigger problem without Trey. He's by far their best perimeter rebounder. Again, bad thing, categorically bad thing that Trey McGowan is hurt. Offense, though, could get better without Trey. The spacing will improve because whether you're replacing Trey with C.J. Wilcher or Kobe Webster, Casey Tominaga, all these guys are going to pitch in together to make up those minutes. Now you have shooters on the floor all around Alonzo Verge who have to stay there, and that gives Alonzo more room to operate. So maybe some of these drives that look a little helter-skeltery early in the season aren't going to look quite that way. If the light does click on for him, again, it's 3 games in. It isn't. I want to give as much leeway to Fred's point about this guy's been a scorer his entire life. It is hard to change your identity as a basketball player, but they still need him to click the light on. And if they do get him to click the light on, having that one extra shooter around can help the team as well. So I don't think this is a death knell for the entire season.
I'm not sure he's the biggest problem. Like, I mean, in the sense that, like, it's obvious that there's a problem.
He has the ball on every possession, and their possessions aren't working out very well.
But the things that I'm talking about are a big deal. Like, their post play is not great. And, Andre had 5 minutes against Sam Houston State, and that was the difference in the game, is when he came alive. The edge with which they play is just not... It's not there. And Verge, fair, unfair, Verge very much wants to play hard, at least on offense.
Yes. I'd say he had like 3 or 4 steals in the Sam Houston State game. Yeah. He's doing his part on defense.
He's trying. Like, there's a want-to factor there. There was always a want-to factor with Teddy. Always a want-to factor with Teddy. But Cam was the best player on the floor. The problem is Nebraska has to surround these guys like Verge and like Teddy. And again, Verge and Teddy don't have the same life story, so we don't want to compare Verge too much to that. But you get these guys who are good basketball players and have spent a lot of time on their craft, and they come in and they get in this one-on-one stuff. You've got to have other guys that can kind of do the other things. And again, Bryce, he's going to score a lot of points. It can't just be you either score, get to the lane, or you just stand there and watch everybody else. Like, you have to do something without the ball.
That's what, to Fred's point last night, I think 2 of Bryce's 3
times.
Buckets were off of off-ball stuff, and he didn't really come close to generating anything on his own.
One of them was kind of luck, because the ball got popped out of Walker's hands again, and then he kind of grabbed it, and O'Connell was going for a steal, and but you have to do something. Like, you can't just stand there and then when somebody else shoots, go rebound. Or maybe they didn't want him to rebound because they were worried about Creighton's transition.
Yeah.
If this is the way it's going to be, though, you got to have somebody out there that's going to battle. And I just feel like the battling portion of the team, that's got to be the front court guys. It's got to be one of those wings. I mean, you got to be able to maybe say to a Keon Edwards, Keon, we don't really need you to score. We need you to go out there and, throw elbows and draw fouls and foul people and go get rebounds at the expense of your body. I don't know. Somebody. Maybe it's him. Maybe you can ask Trevor Lakes to do that. I don't really think that's what he does. By the way, Trevor Lakes, not playing. When Creighton goes and gets a D2 guy, he's good. See the difference? I mean, not trying to knock Trevor, but Creighton's guy's good. He's really good. He had 15 and 10. That's a good basketball player right there. There's a difference. Like, how do you not get that guy?
But this is something we've been talking, to your point about the guys who is going to battle, something we've been talking about all preseason. Just look at the team photo. Who jumps out to you as that guy? Bryce McGowan's slight, skinny. He's put on 15 pounds. That's great. Sure. He needed to do that. He probably needs to put on 15 more. Casey Tominaga, slight, skinny. Kobe Webster, slight, skinny. Alonzo Verge, slight, skinny.
It's the size of the dog. It's the size of the fight.
It is. Casey Tominaga, you could argue he's one of the guys who's doing that. He's taking charges. He's playing hard on defense, even when the shot's not falling. But, like,
I would think it would be Wilcher.
Because he's got the bulk to him.
Yeah, because he's physical. But maybe he needs to play more and just needs to play 30
I think he's
minutes
going to.
and get into the action, and because he can shoot. And I thought he would be more of the brawler. Anyway, to me, it's a bad situation because, again, they got 3 games coming up. I think they can win all 3 of them.
They should win all of
right?
all of these non-conference games that aren't against NC State and Auburn. They should win all of them still.
Well, they should. They play 3 that they should win, and then they play USD, and you never know with USD. USD can be dangerous. Summit League is no joke. So I don't even know what their record is right now, but if they don't play hard, they're going to lose one of those games. I mean, they're going to have to play their guts out. And the first 3 games, I'm not sure that they've played a 40-minute all guts kind of game. The first 10 minutes against Creighton, they almost got booed out of the building. And then they found some.
Well, they've made some threes.
They did, but Kobe comes in, he starts pounding, he's hitting.
Yeah,
that's
he's flexing.
The thing. Yeah, that's the edge, and that's the thing that they've got to bring to the table. And it feels like there's just too much. I don't know.
Could be a chicken or the egg thing. What have they had to flex about other than Kobe's run?
That's fair.
Maybe there's more of those guys out there. It's just not happening. I mean,
That's fair.
Bryce showed a little bit of that when he had the 9-13 game against Sam Houston, but he's, for the most part, a pretty soft-spoken guy. But yeah, other than that, it's been a lot of just dragging along.
Yeah, I don't want to be too hard on Fred and all those guys.
It's early.
I'm
very early.
Like, I think I know the lead assistant, Matt Abdelmassi, well enough to know that he cares very much about that edge part.
New York guy, yeah.
And it feels like the team probably isn't playing with the amount of edge that he thinks he recruited. And let's just see what comes from the next 3 games. I mean, they need to beat the teams by 20 or 30 points, and they need to act like they got to act like they own the court and they're not just going along.
I'll say the one final thought I'll make here is we started this season talking about tournament buzz, bubble team, how far can they climb in the Big Ten. We got to, can they keep this thing on the tracks real fast?
Yeah, we did.
Real fast.
Oh. When you look like Nebraska's offensive line, which is what they've looked like so far, that's where you get. There's a lot of points in Nebraska's football team that actually plays with some they would kick my rear end badass stuff. That one unit, which could still kick my rear end, they don't seem like they play with that same level of anger and nastiness. That one unit on the team. Everybody on that defense plays that way. Adrian plays with a lot of fire.
The tight ends.
The tight ends play with fire. The receivers play with fire. Running backs, I don't blame anything that's going on there. That's a mess. But it's not their fault. But that offensive line doesn't seem to play with the, we're Nebraska's offensive line. They seem to play, we're hanging on. And it shows when they play. And they're playing Wisconsin.
They are playing Wisconsin coming up this weekend. And I guess I wanted to kind of zoom out before we got into Wisconsin specifically a little bit. So it's at Wisconsin this weekend, and then Iowa to finish. Nebraska's, what are they now, 3-7? Bowl games out of the question at this point. There's really not a ton on the line, even in terms of what Scott Frost has on the line for his future since he is coming back for a 5th year. So I'm curious, how much do you guys view these last 2 weeks as having bearing on the offseason with all that Nebraska has to do and into the 2022 season? Do you think, does it matter? How much does it matter? Where do you guys come down on these last couple games?
I think it matters. I think it matters how you finish. You should try to finish well, in the sense that there's a sort of collective positivity that you can take, experience, to turn it into a microcosm. It matters that we go up there and cover the game well. Like, I don't want to blow deadline. Game's over. I mean, the season's kind of over, but I don't want to blow deadline. I know we're going to be working a lot in December on this, portal stuff and coaching carousel stuff, but let's go up and cover the game well. Like, let's just mail it in because it's not the big story. Same thing with them. I mean, there's something to be said, and Adrian said it, a couple other guys did. You play for pride. You play to make a statement. It doesn't have to be that there's stakes attached to it. It doesn't mean that there needs to be a reward at the end. The reward is the effort. The reward is knowing that you walked off the field and you did everything you could. Not just almost everything you could, but everything you could. And that's true in a lot of walks of life. And that's true when you're a plumber. That's true when you're a salesman. That's true when you're a truck driver. All those things. So hopefully there's that. I kind of think there will be. But yeah. I mean, if we're sitting here together on the Tuesday after Iowa and they beat Iowa, we're going to be like, they beat Iowa. We're going to talk for 10 minutes about them having done that.
Yep.
And then that's going to carry through the whole season, the whole offseason. Well, we beat Iowa. Trev Alberts will say it 19 times. Well, we beat Iowa. Like, that was personally important to me because I grew up in yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I don't know that Evan and I were arguing about this on Monday a little bit. I don't know that beating Iowa or beating Wisconsin will tangibly make a difference. Like, I don't know if it's going to carry over. Like, I don't believe in momentum from that win carrying over to July or
right.
like when you're running that gasser in August during training camp next year. Like, well, we beat Iowa, so I'm going to keep going on this one. Sure. I don't think that's how that works. I do think tangibly could affect the transfer portal. You got to be able to sell something, and you can say you're really close, even if you lose to Wisconsin and Iowa by 3 points each. You're one play away 6 times. That's a hard sell.
Yeah, it is.
It's a really hard sell. If you can actually prove that you can get it over the hump, and it's like, okay, see, we did it. It took us a while. We had to grind the entire season, but here's what we were missing. These tiny little holes that we can plug, and you, transfer portal guy X, could be one of those plugs. And if we can get you and work you into this, maybe a few of those games do change the other way.
Right.
So it matters. How they play matters. How close they get matters. I don't know if it matters as much for the guys who are on the team as much as it matters for perception, which is what matters for the guys they're going to be trying to hire and the guys they're going to be trying to bring into the program.
That's possible. I think if they were to win and finish the season with 2 wins, it would be a big boost. I don't think that's going to happen, but if they did, I think it would be they'd be able to take that again on the road all off season. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, the reason that we finished 5-7, we were real close in some games, and then we beat Wisconsin and Iowa at the end, and the schedule was harder than any schedule in the country, and we're actually if they beat Wisconsin and Iowa, they're going to be like top 18 in the ESPN FPI, and everybody's going to say that was the best 5-7 team there ever's been. And that's worth something. Just like it was worth something when Nebraska went to a meaningless bowl in 2015 and they beat UCLA to finish 6-7.
Yep.
That carried over. That the whole identity of that program carried over. And because right after the game, Mike Ray was like, a statement from me, we're going to be top 3 in rushing because everything that had happened that night. They'd run the ball. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I just think, too, I mean, again, like the resume for Scott Frost right now, his best win at Nebraska is still something in 2018, Michigan
76.
State or Minnesota in 2018. I mean, yeah, they've come close and they've come close and they've come close. But if you beat Wisconsin or Iowa, it is objectively the best win that he would have had. And wouldn't it be fitting for this program to win one of these 2 games after sort of the pressure's off and after the staff changes have occurred, to go out and like bust a couple big plays against Wisconsin and win it, or to finally break through against Iowa once sort of the fate of this season has been decided? Like, it just feels like
it would be ironic, but I think it would be fitting.
Oh, absolutely.
I think this team could play better having nothing on the line other than pride. And Frost could coach better, not having to deal with competing voices in his office.
Like, the intangibles this weekend specifically are really interesting to me because Wisconsin's in the driver's seat to win the West. Their motivation is clear and obvious. You know how they're going to play because they always play that way. You know who's going to do, they're just going to do what they do on the ground. They're not a very good passing team. Their defense is like elite. Nebraska, I mean, who knows? Who knows what that offense is going to look like with a revamped assist and, the revamped staff. Who knows what defensively, if they'll be able to hang with Wisconsin the way they hung with Kenneth Walker or Travion Henderson or whoever. Like, maybe they will. Maybe they'll get blown out. Like, I have no idea. The range of outcomes for this game is
huge.
It's so wide.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that's what's the most interesting to me about this matchup is that Wisconsin is so defined in what they do. We always use the word identity. Nebraska is so unpredictable. that it makes for a really fascinating Saturday when like anything could happen.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think I would expect Wisconsin to win the game, but Nebraska's offense has some schematic answers for what Wisconsin does. Wisconsin's defense is not unique in its structure, but it's a little different from some of the other teams that you're going to face. They haven't played a lot of good offenses this year. Let's be honest. They haven't played great offenses. Nebraska is not great either, but they'll be better than Rutgers and what's they play?
Northwestern.
Illinois, Northwestern, and Iowa. Nebraska has a much better offense than Iowa. So it isn't going to be a game where Wisconsin holds Nebraska to 47 yards and it's, the final score is 19-0. I mean, I think Nebraska will score and they'll have some success, provided the weather is decent. And it looks like it will be. And
do you have any Madison memories, by the way? You've been to Madison a number of times.
Yeah.
I've been once.
Yeah. The most memorable 2 games were in 2011, the first Big Ten game, where Nebraska wore black. The fans wore black so that everybody could pick them out, which I don't think was that good of an idea. And it was just the first time we'd all been there. First Big Ten game ever. World-Herald sent, I'm not kidding you, 8 people. We sent our food critic. Sarah was there. Her husband Matthew was there. News columnist. I mean, it was this massive, aircraft carrier of World-Herald people. And I remember the atmosphere being really festive before the game. I mean, like Summer of Love festive. Everybody was happy. Everybody was really friendly. People coming up and giving you things. And then during the game and after the game, it was completely different. It was really hostile, especially after the game. People got drunk, obviously. I remember the elevator smelling like urine. Yeah. So, yeah, and then 2014 was the Melvin Gordon game. That was such a weird game. I just can't even tell you how strange that game was. Nebraska was up 17-3, and it just it turned on a dime with one play. Gordon got loose, hurdled Corey Cooper, and the game was over. Nebraska was still ahead, but it was over. And from that point forward, Nebraska's defense could not stop. And Bo was really, really stubborn. Wouldn't bring his safeties down. Kept 2 high safeties, worried about Connor McAvoy and Joel frickin' Stave throwing the ball, and they couldn't stop the run. And when those safeties encountered Melvin Gordon 10 yards down the field, they weren't going to make that play. And they didn't make that play. That's why Melvin Gordon's still in the NFL and Nebraska's safeties aren't. And I'm not sure they ever were. So, yeah, those are my 2 biggest memories. Great city, great food, great atmosphere, great beer.
One of the worst press boxes in the Big Ten.
Yeah, but
Penn State's down there too.
Sure, it'll be cold, so your hands will get real cold afterward. That part doesn't bother me as much as that bothers other people. I get kind of a kick out of the quaintness of it. I just don't like small press boxes, and I don't like hot ones. Oklahoma's was hot.
Yeah,
I felt like I was gonna melt.
Yeah. That was an early kick. Early kick, yeah.
I thought the fat was just going to melt right off me. It was going to be like a weight loss plan in there. That was Oklahoma. Best press box we've ever been in. I think we have the same answer. Best road press box we've ever been in is?
Best road press box?
Yeah.
Well, the Peach Bowl.
Yes.
Which wasn't technically a Nebraska
But
game.
Did you cover the team in 2017?
Yeah. Oh, the Oregon one. Yeah, the open air, sure. Yeah. Yes, that was great. That was great.
That was like an HD TV only live. It was like it was unbelievable.
Open air, gorgeous foliage.
Oh,
big foliage.
We've never had an experience like that press box. That's the best.
Yeah. Well, and that's the
My
one we always
favorite
talk
road
about
game,
when we talk about shrinking Memorial Stadium. Like the capacity for Autzen is what, 50,000, 60,000, something like that.
And it was loud.
Great atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was. Wisconsin will have a good atmosphere. They'll have a good crowd. It's always a late arriving crowd. Their students arrive one row at a time.
Yep.
It's a total disaster. All of their students don't get into the stadium until the end of the first quarter. So when the game kicks off, that's the time to get going because they don't have any students there because they let him in one row at a time.
Hmm.
And I don't know why, but they do.
Let's. I know it's not the off season. We still have 2 games to go, but I think there's an interest in that, especially after the changes and the hirings that are to come, and the busy month of December that you alluded to, Sam. I'm curious what you guys think if you were to sort of rank the importance on Nebraska's to-do list for December. How would you rank coaching hires, talent acquisition, so transfer portals, finishing the recruiting class well, and then talent retention, keeping the junior eligible guys around, Martinez, Austin Allen, whoever it might be? How would you rank those 3 things in terms of their importance for 2022?
I'd go top of the line is talent acquisition, because I don't think they're going to make any. Scott said I don't think they're going to make any major changes on the coaching along the coaching strategy on the offensive side of the ball. So you know what you're dealing with. Find the guys who can make it work. That's priority number 1. Number 2, the coaching staff, because you got to have coaching staff, and Scott's really focused in on the offensive coordinator job. That's something that needs to work. That needs to mesh. There can't be inconsistencies there. There can't be competing voices, like Sam said. It has to be continuity. It has to be everyone on the same page. And then the talent retention thing, I think we all kind of know where that's heading at this point. I think those guys are, most of them, out the door. Sam has whittled me down on that one. I was feeling all gleeful and optimistic about 3 weeks ago, but the more the season continues, the more I just think that I don't think they have a ton of control over that. So you got to get the right people in, especially given the positions that could be open, i.e. quarterback. That's number 1. Coaching staff is important, but we kind of know what it's going to look like as a structure, and then the talent retention is kind of out of their control anyways.
Chenander prioritized talent retention, which I thought was interesting. I think he hit like 89% on him last year, and so that may be why he prioritized it. On the defensive side of the ball, with Cam Taylor-Britt accepting the Senior Bowl invite, he's gone. Why else would he have accepted that? Maybe we'll get to talk to him. I assume he's going to have Senior Day next week when they play Iowa. So he's out. And then you've got to go down the list a little bit and see what Damian Daniels wants to do. For example, Feldarius Payne probably should come back. He didn't play a lot in 2020. He was banged up, played more this year. I could make an argument that Caleb Tanner should come back, unless he wants to transfer to some other school. There's some players that you can just basically tell them, hey, you're going to start next year, so do you want to play? That kind of thing. But I don't know that I would rank that number 1. I'd probably go with coaching staff. I think that's really obviously important to Scott. It's enormously important that he get people in there that he not only trusts, but people who can do the job without him having to peek over their shoulder and micromanage them and things like that. The thing that I'll be interested to watch him navigate very quickly is, does he pick from a pool of, and I'm going to ask him this directly, do you want to start with the most important thing to me is experience, having done it in the context of this, i.e. a major university, being an offensive coordinator in a major college football program, and then with that pool, then selecting the qualities that you think match up with you. In other words, there's 10 people who have done it. These 3 guys fit who I am as a person. I'm going to interview those 3 guys, so on and so forth. Or do you start with, here are the qualities that I like, here are the things that I want in a coach, and I'm not necessarily a stickler for if they've had 5 or 6 years of experience at that role. I'd be willing to look at an FCS coordinator. I'd be willing to look at a Division II coordinator. I'd be willing to consider even an FCS head coach.
By the way, given the circumstances, might have to, because there's could be a 1-year deal on this thing.
There's just as an example, there are FCS coaches, head coaches, who make $300,000 a year. That's a great salary, and I'd take it any day of the week. But if you can offer somebody $1 million and an opportunity to call plays at this level, which could open doors for them to become head coaches at this level, don't you think you have to look at that? So, I'm curious, because most of the names that have been bandied around so far are, well, this guy was from Nebraska, and he called plays at LSU. Let's pick him. Well, this guy's name is Tom Herman, and we all know him, so let's pick him. well, this guy over here is somebody who called plays and did this for a while, and he's got a name. Let's pick him. This is basically the Bob Diaco model of selecting a offensive coordinator. Like, let's pick a name and then let's have them do it. Like, I'll be curious to see if that's what he wants to do, or if he wants to say, I need to pick someone with a certain quality, and I am willing to look at an FCS head coach or a Division II head coach. I'll be intrigued. I'll be intrigued by that process, because as the media and as fans, everybody gets caught up in the names. It's like the hot board, which we haven't put out because I don't really think there is a solid hot board at this moment.
Right.
But to me, it's not going to be the name of the person. It's going to be, do they embody the qualities that Frost can work with? And the qualities are probably pretty close to what Eric Chenander is. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
Chenander is a certain kind of person. It's hard to find that kind of person on the offensive side of the ball because there's a certain level of ego that's involved. But I would think he would want to find somebody who's like that. And I don't know if you can find that. I don't know that Tom Herman embodies that, for example. I'm not saying it's going to be Tom Herman anyway, but if you think Tom Herman, you think of the guy that was worried about the color of his players' urine and, made fun of other teams' players and was kind of a whatever. And I just wonder if, the guys that Frost likes to run with are a little bit more humble. And that cuts both ways, right? Like, there's Chenander. And then there's, did you have the right quarterbacks coach? Did you? Did you have the right running backs coach? Was that really the right guy to reach all the guys that they were trying to recruit? Toward the end, Mario Verduzco's, press conferences turned into, well, that gun's got a cat. That cat's got a gun. He's good now. Looking good. Like, you're not talking about it. Like, you have to be able to handle the media and handle those questions and things like that. And it became abundantly clear that when things started going wrong, that was not an easy role for someone like Mario, who had been associated with winning programs for 20 years, for him to handle.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the coaching hires to me are at the top just because out of that flows the other things. So whoever those guys are will make the pitch to some of the junior eligible guys about coming back. Whoever those guys are may have had, recruiting connections to whoever they want to go after in the portal. I think that's, as we've seen the portal for a couple of years now, it seems like that's a trend is, hey, did you recruit these guys on the front end out of high school? Do you have a relationship with them? And if you do, then that gives you kind of a leg up on what you're doing moving forward. And so I'm not saying Nebraska would hire coaches based on that, but whoever those guys are, I do think will impact maybe the players that consider that particular program. And we talk about, the quarterback position moving forward, assuming Adrian moves on, whoever that next guy is, it's going to matter who that offensive coordinator is. Yeah. It's going to matter what kind of system's out there for them for a potential quarterback transfer to decide to come to Nebraska. So, like we've acknowledged, this could end up being a one-year thing for these group of assistants who come in if things fall apart next year. But I don't think you can do the other things until the coaches get here. And it'll just be really interesting to see what role they have on reshaping the staff. Will there be a special teams coordinator? Does Sean Beckton take kind of a passing game coordinator role? How they reshape things and reimagine things now with sort of this second chance, I think is going to be really interesting too.
I feel like we're watching the last two games of Adrian Martinez's career in Nebraska. I just do. Like, I think he deserves the opportunity to go look somewhere else, maybe play somewhere else. His quarterback's coach is gone. They're going to have a third coordinator. I just can't imagine asking him to do what he's done the last 4 years, which is put his body on the line with the same collection of players that have been around him this whole time. It feels like this is an opportunity for him, unless he's just really, really dedicated to this place, to maybe
NIL money too. And doesn't it feel like he just?
I'm telling you, that money thing is, and maybe I'm wrong. I just think it's overrated. I just don't think it's the driving story that people think it is.
Maybe not.
And this may be my own worldview about money, that I just don't think money is as big of a deal as maybe some other people in the world do. But I don't know. It ain't help. I'll tell you, it isn't helping Nebraska win anything.
No.
The players that have gotten the most NIL money, I wouldn't necessarily say they're, I guess Bryce, but I don't know. Like, to me, it's just not as. And this is an area where we'll probably go round and round and round for years and years and years. I don't think there's anything wrong with NIL money. I think it's good. I think the kids probably like it, but I think it's more. There are very few JoJo Domans in this world. JoJo handled it really well. But JoJo's he's also 23, 24, I don't know. And he's a sixth-year senior, and I think it's hard to handle that stuff. And I could just see Adrian being like, you know what, I can get some money over here, and I've just done enough here. But you never know. Like, I know there's money in a fund. I know that.
The other interesting piece to me is if you're bringing back Scott Frost for a fifth year, don't you want to see what the offense could be like with a different quarterback as the full-time guy?
Well, yeah.
I mean, it is possible that Martinez would come back for a fifth year and Scott Frost's entire tenure would be coupled or yoked to Adrian Martinez. We wouldn't have seen anybody else after the quarterback success he had at Oregon, at UCF, to not see what it could look like with anybody else as the full-time guy, to me, is a missed opportunity, I mean, like you don't. It's an incomplete evaluation, in my opinion. So, I think that's the other part.
That's a hell of a point.
And I've heard a lot from fans about that too, saying, "Man, wouldn't it just be interesting to see what somebody else could do if they were groomed, if they were brought in, if they were prepared the way Adrian Martinez was? Could that be the thing that helps Nebraska break through? I don't know."
Yeah, we'll keep going around and around about that NIL thing. We'll just see.
I think to your point about the money thing, Sam, the starting quarterback of any Division I football team is going to be doing all right, NIL wise.
I think so.
Right? I mean, Nebraska probably can do better than most schools, but Adrian Martinez is going to go to another Power 5 school if he transfers, and he'll do just fine.
Yeah, I don't know how the other schools. It's hard to tell sometimes how they're doing at the other schools. I know that there's good deals at BYU and Alabama. I know there's a fund for Nebraska. All I can say is that when the thing landed in the summer, there was a presumption that it was going to be one thing. It hasn't turned out to be that thing. Spencer Rattler made money, and De'Aaron King, and it just isn't the boon that everybody believes it is. And what it's going to take is a group of very rich people saying, we're going to make it this way, and we're going to forge a path with our own money, and it has to be successful. And I don't see anything at this point that tells me that NIL money is the key to Nebraska football getting better. Because, and maybe the transfer portal will prove me wrong, and they will get 5, 6, 7, 8 of the best transfer portal players on the planet. I don't know. But at this point, what the other thing I would say is, now that the NIL stuff is legal, I mean, I got to think it's pretty darn easy for some SEC school to just give a bag of money to a kid. NIL, I don't know, you can report it, you don't have to report it. Nobody's going after you anyway, everybody's making money. At that point, it almost legitimizes bag money.
Oh, yeah. Do a private interview here. Here's $5,000.
You don't even have to do the interview. It's just bag money.
You got to do something. I mean, do something small. Go do an autograph signing. Here's $10,000.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's possible.
That's what we want to pay. It's legal. That's all it is.
There's a fund. There's a fund out there, and wealthy people have given to it. So we'll just see. I'm fatigued by that topic already, though. I feel like in 3 or 4 years, when the NCAA redoes its constitution, you're going to see this whole piecemeal strip mall approach to NIL go away. And it's going to be an institutional approach that allows the Division I schools to funnel the money in equal terms to the athletes, and we can just do away with this, middle ground. You want to go do a cell phone deal? Hey, Garrett, do you want to do something? He put something out today. Garrett Nelson posted something for Chipotle or
Aloe. Well, here we are. We're promoting it. So here you go.
You want to show up at the Optimist Club football team? Like, that seems, again, you start adding all those things in, and it's like, it's a huge drain on a kid's time. And we had a gal, obviously, Aaliyah, in our office who got a happy birthday message for Reese, and Nicola Ames answers it, and she's driving her car she's like got her dashboard phone and says happy birthday. She's driving. It's like it's just a lot for these kids. They're already dealing with so much.
Yeah. You want to talk baseball real quick before we go to picks?
You want to lay out the schedule?
Yeah. So
I can lay it out, and then you can
Sure.
comment on it.
Sure. Yeah.
Here, let me give it.
This, by the way, I got a lot of feedback in the wake of Nebraska Creighton basketball last night. People are acutely aware that it's 93 days until Nebraska baseball begins
That's right.
its season.
Well, my brothers sent me the schedule.
Great.
They're ready to move on.
Yeah.
I went to a batting cage recently. How about that?
So they're pretty fired up.
I hit pretty well. Better than I
I'd
thought.
like to hear more
Well
about
done.
this later.
So they start the season with 2 series in Texas. The highlight, obviously, being TCU, and then they come home. And they play a lot of games at home. They have a 3-game against San Diego State, 3 against Long Beach, 2 against New Mexico, 3 against Corpus Christi, South Dakota State. Big 3-game series in late March against Michigan. Sort of the,
Yep.
one of the gold standards in the league. Go to Creighton. That'll be fun. Ohio State, UNO, back home for a bunch. Rutgers, Creighton, 4 against BYU.
Wrap it up on a
Interesting.
Saturday. They don't play on Sundays, yeah.
North Dakota State at Indiana. Indiana traditionally has been one of the powerhouse teams. K-State, UNO, 3 games against Omaha. And then they end the season at home, which I thought was nice. There's other games in there that I'm not listing. But
Right.
They get Michigan and Lincoln. They get to end the season at home. So the final weekend, if you are in a race and you want to sweep, they play Michigan State. Is that right?
Michigan State.
At home. That's pretty sweet. That's the team you want to play, and you want to play that at home.
This will be something I'll be thinking about as the year goes on, but to me that the next thing for Nebraska baseball is to have a big moment at home. You think about all the big moments they've had in the last 5 years. They won the 2017 regular season title in front of like 200 people at Penn State. They won the league title last year at Indiana when there were no fans allowed. Their big regional moments have been on the road. Really the only big local moment was in the Big Ten championship tournament in 2019 at TD Ameritrade when they had like 17,000 people show up. They lost to Ohio State in the final, but that Haymarket Park hasn't had that moment since, they hosted in 08, but they didn't do well in that regional either. So it's been a long time since like people could just show up and see something cool, and maybe Michigan State's that series. But the schedule overall, I was interested to see become official because this is Will Bolt's 3rd year, but this is the first chance we've had to see how he wants to schedule.
Right.
You think about the 2020 COVID year, he was kind of inherited that schedule anyway. They were foisted that conference-only season last year by the Big Ten. That was the mandate. And so, Will Bolt's from the Houston area. His staff's from Texas. And so I think we've seen a lot of that Southwestern flavor show up in some of the teams that you mentioned. TCU is a really cool opportunity. They're playing at Globe Life Field, home of the Texas Rangers, Major League Baseball. They haven't played midweek games essentially since 2019. They played 2 before the season was wiped out in 2020. And the March thing is really interesting too. So they play 17 games in March, 15 at home, and then 1 in Manhattan, Kansas, and 1 in Omaha.
What's the over/under on how many they'll actually get in? 12?
Yeah, that's probably a good one.
Yeah.
What was it, 2019? There was a glacier essentially in center field until mid-March.
That was the year of the flood, right?
Yeah.
All the floods, yeah.
2018, 2019.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting strategy because, as Will Bolt said, you don't have to pray for warm weather. Just pray for no snow because they want to bring these southern schools and these warm weather schools in here and use the conditions as sort of a home field advantage. So that's what Van Horn did in the early 2000s. That's very much intentional on their part, is to bring the San Diego States and the Long Beach States into cold, real feel Lincoln, Nebraska, where you need it to be at least 30 degrees to play, at least according to Big Ten rules. So
they're playing at the Astros Stadium. They're playing at the Astros Stadium.
Texas Rangers.
Oh, Rangers. Okay.
In
I was thinking,
Arlington.
that place is pretty nice. That Astros Stadium's goofy as
Mm-hmm.
F. I would never want to play a series there. But the Arlington, this is the new one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
So they
opened
had the
in
COVID
2020.
baseball
Really
playoffs,
sweet.
right? They had the COVID year baseball playoffs
Oh,
there.
yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
can't stand that stadium. But
Right.
the new place in Texas is really cool.
Yeah, $1.2
Somebody's going to be going
billion
there. I think
facility.
Evan's going to be going down to that.
I hope so.
I'm pretty sure.
It'll be
That's
really
a big
cool.
series.
It's a huge series.
That's going to be 7,000 fans because Nebraska has a legion of fans in Dallas.
It's an interesting schedule because it's really not difficult in the sense of like these teams did really well last year. I think only 3 of their opponents were NCAA qualifiers last year, but it's difficult in the sense that they're really pounding the southern schools. BYU's coming to Lincoln, like you mentioned, during that week that they don't play a Big Ten opponent middle of the year. It's an interesting. I don't think it's overly difficult, but I think it's appropriate for where this team is as they try to build up their RPI and get into the postseason.
No, that's a good point, Evan. It feels like this schedule we think we've got some building to do. We don't have all these old guys that were here last year, and so they need to have some success. Like a schedule that was like we think we're in the College World Series includes teams that are going to play in the College World Series because I think it's very hard to make the College World Series unless you can go play 6 to 9 SEC games. Because that's the road to go to the CWS goes through the SEC. And there's no SEC on this schedule.
Correct.
So now I would suspect somewhere in the near future, Texas A&M or LSU or someone will be on the schedule. Because Childress knows all those people.
He does.
So he can go to the guy at Vanderbilt and say, hey, that'll help them. We're talking about Rob Childress, who's like a special assistant to the head coach. So to me, when I saw the schedule, I'm like, they think they need to win some games early, and they're not going to go hunting, Alabama, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt, and because I'm sure those schools would want to. But when do they put the schedule together? In the summer?
Yeah, I mean,
it comes
about
after
a year
the
ahead.
season.
Yeah, that's when they finalize the non-con stuff. Yeah.
Long Beach State, San Diego State. Yeah. One of those teams will be good. You just know, like, one of them will end up being like a 2-3 seed in the NCAA tournament. You don't know which one, but maybe Long Beach.
Yeah. I mean, and I think they made a conscious effort to get as many home games this year as possible, too. 33 is a pretty good amount for a northern school, a really good amount. And I think there's an acknowledgement of the last 2 years, how tough it's been for fans. And, again, like they want to bank wins. 3 years ago, they're playing the Oregon States and the Texas Techs of the world all the time. This year, the TCU, it stands out as a series that is apart from sort of the next level down warm weather opponents they're facing.
Yeah, Darren Erstad loved playing those teams down there. Once upon a time, Jimmy, there was a series where UCLA came to Nebraska and it was extremely cold. And Nebraska fans that actually went out and braved the cold got to watch Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer on the same team pitch at Nebraska. And I think Cole gave up 1 run, Bauer gave up none. I mean, it was like Nebraska won one of the games, 2-1, 1-0. It was really something.
They
to watch both of those guys.
They played Max Scherzer back in the day, too. He was
did.
with Missouri.
Yeah, Max was, Anyway, that was I'll never forget that when those two guys came to town. It was like, wow.
So anyway, it's still 3 months away. I know fans in some respects are maybe interested in that given how football and basketball have been going, but the schedule's out. A year ago it was out like 2 weeks before the season started, so, progress, but should be fun. You want to go to picks?
Picks. All right. We made one before this podcast. We picked the NUCU Hoops game. Evan and I picked Creighton, and Jimmy picked Nebraska.
What an idiot.
So I am now 11 behind Evan, and Jimmy is 8 behind Evan. So I'm coming up close on you. Jimmy.
Run the ball.
I'm going to catch you.
I'm getting what I deserve
and
for
then
that
the bowl
one.
season, I'm going to catch him.
Yeah, you
Arkansas at Alabama.
Alabama.
Let me think about this. Bama.
Alabama. Oregon at Utah.
Give me the Utes. Oregon's.
I'm going Utah as well.
Yeah.
I'll give Sam the Oregon pick here.
Utah.
Oh.
This is a preview of the Pac-12 championship that's going to be played in 3 weeks.
Yeah, both these teams clinched their divisions with a win, I believe.
Pretty much. Utah's real close to it. I don't think the challenge is Oregon's got to beat Utah twice probably, and you don't want to show too much the first time, but they got to win it in order to keep in the playoff cut.
I hope Oregon doesn't make the playoff. That's just I don't think they're that kind of team.
SMU at Cincinnati.
Cincy.
Yeah, I'll take Cincy as well.
Maybe you and me. Cincy. Iowa State or Oklahoma?
Oof. I'll go Oklahoma. They don't know what they're doing at quarterback, but I don't think it matters.
I don't think they lose 2 in a row. Oklahoma.
Iowa State. Virginia at Pittsburgh. I'll take Pitt.
I'll go UVA.
Pittsburgh.
Pitt. Illinois at Iowa.
Going Iowa.
Okay.
I wouldn't put anything past Iowa at this point, but I'll go Iowa.
Iowa. Here's a first rivalry game. Cal-Stanford.
Hey. Stanford.
Give me Cal.
Cal for Evan. I'm going to go Stanford in part because Cal has had to deal with, and I don't say this lightly now, they've had to deal with some COVID rules that nobody else in the country has had to deal with.
True.
The county they're in, different. And I think you could wager to say not fair what they've had to deal with. UCLA at USC, so this one's at the Coliseum.
Chip Kelly breaks through. UCLA.
Okay.
Yep. Brew Crew.
Michigan State at Ohio State.
Are you going UCLA as well?
I am, yeah.
Okay. I would love to see Michigan State pull that one out. I think that'd be a lot of fun, but Ohio State.
Ohio State can throw how many times it wants, however long it wants. Ohio State's going to score many points in this game.
Yeah, they are. Wake Forest at Clemson.
I understand Clemson can't score. I just look at those rosters, and I just can't not pick Clemson.
Clemson's 7-3. They're in a bad year. 7-3.
Clemson as well, for the same reasons.
Wake.
Ooh.
Baylor at Kansas State.
Baylor.
Ooh, well, that's Gamsy. Got some gams on there.
Going Kansas State.
Some sand.
I think Baylor expended a lot of emotional energy. Kansas State.
I'm gonna go Baylor. No, I'm going K-State. What am I talking about?
Psych.
Nebraska, Wisconsin.
Give me Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Been burned by one Husker athletic program this week already.
Wisconsin. And our last one is Harvard, Yale. No ties. Not anymore.
Red's my favorite color. Let's go Harvard.
Harvard as well.
Well, I've got nothing against the Yaleys. Yale. They have the same record. The line's like 3, so it's a coin flip game.
Should be fun.
I'll take Yale. They're playing at home, the Yale Bowl.
Is that really what it's called?
It is.
Such a smart school. You think they could be a little more creative?
Well, it's truly a bowl, and it's in the ground, and it's like a earthen. What am I saying? Earthen hut? It's not an earthen hut, but it's an earthen stadium. It's a stadium that is supported by the earth.
Okay. Earthen Stadium. I've
I don't
never
know
heard
what
it put
that
that
means,
way
yeah.
before.
Well,
I know what you're saying.
It's obviously it's built into the earth,
like Carver Hawkeye Arena.
sure.
Where you walk in at ground level and you go down into the pit.
It's evident though. The
Okay.
Yale, I believe, if I'm speaking about the right thing here, it's evident that the Yale Bowl.
So the stadium is supported by the earth. Does that mean the
Aren't
field
we all
lights?
really?
True.
We all are.
Does that mean the field lights are powered by wind turbines, or how does that work?
See,
Solar energy.
I'm
Yeah.
showing you this now, and they actually have a very cool stadium, by the way. It's architecturally kind of brilliant.
This is great podcasting
Yeah,
as we
exactly.
look at
It's
the picture
built
of your
on
Oh,
the
phone.
earth.
picture.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So they built
It's like a meteor just kinda
the
landed
tunnels
there.
into the earth. I mean, Yale is well known for its architecture, right? Both old Gothic architecture and then new Bauhaus architecture.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
let's move on.
All right. Well, for my earthen colleagues or earthly colleagues here, we're gonna call it a podcast. But we're inching toward the off season here.
We'll be
for
back
football.
next week to
We'll
talk
be
about
back.
Thanksgiving.
We got hoops. We got Thanksgiving side dishes to debate. All this good stuff. So I hope you guys have a good weekend. Exercise, loosen the belt, get ready for the big meals coming up next week, and keep listening to us.
I'm getting ready for the big meals this weekend. Cheese Curd City.
Good point. Thanks, guys.